Hello everybody, welcome back. My name's Jace. This channel is about my quest to build a reasonable scale N-gauge model railway in the loft, and I am working on part one module of that layout down here in my little office come playroom, and part one is a turntable, and that's what I'm working on, trying to get the most difficult bit out of the way first before I build the board for part one. And there is another video before this, so how I got to the point I'm at now. So if you haven't watched that, you might want to watch that at some point. So if you did watch part one, you will know that I'd made this frame. We did some work on the plastic kit from Peco, and I explained how I'm going to do it with a motor and a slip ring and some micro switches, etc. Since then, all I've done is glued the well into the top board, and I put it all together after I finished filming the first video, had a little play, and did actually get it doing a full revolution, no problem. And that was literally by just having two screws roughly positioning the motor, just to see if it would work, and it did. I can make it a lot better, obviously, and here's a video of it actually going round, and I think I can make it better than that, and build a proper frame. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to get rid of these rubbish MDF legs, temporary supports, and put some new supports in with proper fixings for the motor. Now I know the height that it roughly needs to be from the bottom of the board. I can work that out. But what I'm going to do is try and make that adjustable, even if it means adding some washers or something to alter the height a couple of millimeters at a time until I get it perfect. The other thing that I did since the first video is I've glued in the shaft that I made to the bridge, and if you remember, I fitted the plastic part wrong and had to take it off again, and to do that I cut the wires. Well, that's where those joins are now, glued underneath the bridge so that you can't see them. But what I then realised was I couldn't get the slip ring, electrical slip ring, through that hole. So I've had to cut the wires again. So if you're wondering why the slip ring isn't attached, that's the reason. So what I've done so far, well, you've seen what I've done, just making sure that the bridge is in the right place, and then it's all put together, the motor's in, and I wanted to check that this would still clear under the frame so that I can get my micro switches in place. So it should it'll be a bit fiddly, but it should. So I'm going to put these pieces in now that hopefully will hold the motor. So you can see what I've done, a very crude wooden frame at about the right height for the motor, but leaving 2 or 3 mil just to shim it out or not, whichever. Okay, I'm going to put some screws in there. I found these, I think those heads, yeah, they'll be big enough. So, be careful. So now I can look at this, and the hole that I drilled in the centre, the 20mm hole of the well, you can see on this side. So that means that the bridge, can you have something that's square in a circle? I don't think you can you? But it's a few degrees out. So if I twist the motor now on that one screw underneath, I should be able to cover both sides, and then put a screw in the other side. So if anything, I would say we're a bit high. As you can see this compared to here. Now, I'm not worried about that. I'm happy to build this up if need be with some card. I mean, the detail on this Peco well, it isn't very good anyway, I don't think. There's nothing in here. You know, engraved in the plastic, molded into the plastic like there is on the top. So I'm happy to rework that if the turntable runs well at this height. If that's it, I think perhaps go with it. I could always try putting a couple of mil shim under these screws, under the base of the mountings on the motor, and then that'll bring it this way. But let's just give it a go. I've had a right rigmarole with this. The motor stopped working, so tested power all the way through from the transformer. Motor was dead, took it apart, and there was a little tiny contact that somehow it got bent. I don't know how, but anyway, faffed about with it for an hour, put it all back together, and here we are. I have ordered another motor though, just in case, because the problem is now I've engineered everything to suit the motor with the drive shaft and the D on the shaft and all of that. But what I'll do is, obviously the new one will arrive, I'll keep it as a spare. They're only £13 each, and leave this one running if I ever need a spare. Well, I've got them. So that's the turntable running on full power, so about 12.5 volts. So obviously that's way too quick. So that's about 80%, which is still too quick. That's 60. The motor's developed a click. Okay, so that's 60%. 50. Prototypical is probably 40%. That's 40% there. Of course, I've been doing some research on how turntables were powered, and in the UK, because the trains, the locomotives, used vacuum brakes, then they used to plug the locomotive into the turntable and use the vacuum and vacuum motors to turn itself, basically. There were a few electric ones apparently, but what I am thinking of doing though, which isn't probably prototypical, but is adding a little hut on the side of the bridge, as though that's the control house, because then I can get a light in it, and I think some kind of light will look good. I did sort of offer up a light that I have to sort of sit on the side here, but there's just not enough room really with a locomotive on there. So I'll keep thinking about that, but yeah, maybe a little hut on the side, and then I can put a little light in it and a little guy in there operating the turntable. Okay, so excuse this is where I had to rescue the motor. So I had to melt into the plastic a bit to pull the tab up, and take this plate out as well, and bend the little, they're not brushes but a similar idea inside, but it was all working a minute ago. So these wires come from the bottom race or outer ring of the slip ring, and I think what I'm going to do is get these tidied up and out of the way with some sort of clip here, and then one of these terminals somewhere about there, and then I can, when this eventually goes onto the layout or onto the board that I'm going to make, I've just got to run wires from that socket to wherever they've got to go. Just helps if I can get these wires out of the way. And while that's setting up, so these wires are so thin, I don't know what gauge they are, but they are very, very thin. So what I'm going to do, because if I put these tiny wires in there and try and screw the terminal shut, it's just going to break the cables. So I've got these little ferrules that I'm going to put on, and I'm just going to push the wire through until it gets to the end. I can see it starting to come out, and then with some pliers just crimp it. And then that gives the screw something to really sort of bend down on. That's one of them there. Very thin. I think these are automotive type connectors. That's gone off. So that is an orange, so that's going to be for the lights in the cabin. Cool. They can be tidied up at a later date. But it stops them spinning around with everything. The other two that I'm going to bring through for the lights, I've poked through here at the moment. So now that they're through there, I'll just loop them together if I can. Just keep them tidy for now. Okay, and they can should just go around with the turntable for now. So what I'm doing now is trying to set the height of the top stop nut for the little gadget that will hopefully become the indexing. Yeah, we need to set the motor off. I'll just swing it out the way. So, and maybe back it off a bit as well, and if I need to put these on a little piece of plywood to space them off the board, that's what I'll do. But so if you can see there now, this is the theory of it. This is a switch which is normally closed, so it's normally making a circuit. If this paddle had just come round, hit the switch, clicks, and now the circuit's closed, which will stop the motor. That's the plan. But it needs a bit of refining, and yeah. I really should get a spanner for this. It'd be so much easier. Okay, so that's turning with it. And the wires aren't getting pulled or trapped anymore. Okay everybody, I'm gonna have to leave it there for this video. Got to a point where I can't really carry on much more because I haven't got any screws to go through the little tiny holes in these micro switches. So I'll go and get some of those tomorrow. But we've made progress. We've now got the height of the motor set. We've seen it going around a few times. We've got the little paddle in now, ready to try the micro switch concept. We've got the wires tidied up a little bit. So it's progress, and yeah, I shall carry on when I've got some screws, and I'll record it, obviously, show you how it's going. It could all be a complete failure, yeah. I mean, it maybe I end up going and buying a kit, but I hope not. I like designing and inventing, not inventing, but making things. Yeah. So, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And follow me and see how this turns out. See you next time.